嘢先。其實 Hangout 我發覺有時都未必係幾好。而家好多人用 Zoom 嗰種奇葩版。
係啊 ，Zoom 但係 Zoom 免費版40分鐘嘛，係咪？
但係唔知啊，但係我試過用人哋借俾我嘅 Zoom，我發覺都唔好。
係用住先唔緊要，我哋再試一試，下次再睇下邊隻好啲啦。
我試過好多嘢嘅，我得閒有機會可以 share。
好啊，一陣攞出嚟講可以。
冇問題冇問題。
係啊，
因為其實我做咗個 report 過我哋嗰邊，我試咗幾樣嘢，我試其實 Hangout 有兩個嘅，有個係 check， 一個係 meet 嘅。check 嗰個咧第一次一試，然後俾呢個嚟 ban 咗，因為我哋3個人都搞唔掂。
咁差咩
？meet 就得咯 ，check out 嘅，唔係 Hangout 上 meet 先得咯，唔可以用 check out。
哦，
即係有唔可以用 Gmail 免費版，你一定有個 G Suite 嘅 pay 嘅版本咧，你有 Hangout 咁啲咧好啲。
OK。哦，呢個都唔係 meet 喎，呢個都係就咁 Hangout 嘅啫喎。
Hangout 可能係 check 嚟咯，其實
睇下會點先一陣。
唔係你叫我即刻開個俾你，我即刻，因為我公司我自己公司掛咗係 Google 啊嘛，你叫即我即刻開一個俾你當時嘅都得。
哦，我睇下點啦嚇，睇下發生咩事先。好，睇下先，搞乜鬼咧？佢哋做咩唔入嚟咧？
一撳就入嚟嘅咯噃，冇乜特別嘅噃。
咦？
唔係，如果你有啲 tips 咧，我都可以俾咗
你。點樣咧？
即係點樣用嗰啲譬如用 Zoom， 但係唔係直接用 Zoom， 或者係 Hangout 唔係直接用個 嗰個 Hangout 可能後邊加到 software 試試啦，即係會令到啲嘢會再順啲。因為我睇人哋咧，點解有時會聽人啲嘢，睇人點做啊嘛，睇人哋點做咪知道，跟住我可以點做咯。咁我都唔睇人哋點做，點知我點做啫？即係唔好你點做都好，佢又話有 webinar 咁冇嘢嘅，佢公司就我開住部機咪喺度播咯，咪一定要聽住佢啊。咁我跟住我又做我嘅嘢睇下佢得唔得啊，做得好唔好啊先。
係。
你開定多個俾你先啊，如果佢哋唔
得你可以備用住先，係啊。
係啦。你本身開幾耐嘅話？
我預鬆啲嘅，我預咗2個鐘嘅。
咁我叫醒我。
Hello，Hi Abby，Hi。
係。
我見到你個。
我你哋開視像，你唔係。
我見到你個額頭，係啊。喂，
啱我唔係熄咗咩？
你呢個話咧，冇我第一次搞，我變咗現身個 meeting 咯。
你打翻環部手機先，係啦。
好啊。我點樣先去熄翻自己個 cam 啊？
你睇你幾懶啊，瞓喺度。
已經好好㗎啦，我唔係躝出街，我熄翻自己嘅 cam 先得唔得？可唔可以教我熄翻自己個 cam？出咗去再翻嚟。
佢真係搞唔掂。
算啦，你睇住天花板咯，一係。
有人入嚟啦。Hi everyone，Hello。 We are just starting the event. So just bear with us a few more minutes to allow people join in. I am seeing.
Did I turn off my camera, please?
Yeah, you have turned off your camera, Abby. I'm
Thank God.
seeing
Hello, Mustafa.
Hi. How to pronounce your name? Mustafa.
Mustafa, yes.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So actually we haven't officially started yet. I haven't live streamed anything yet. We're still waiting for a few more people to join in.
Yes, please don't go live.
Abby, when you are ready, let us know, please.
I'm kind of ready, but I'm still in bed.
Okay. Let me see. We have Dao. Hello. Say hi to everyone when you have just joined in.
Oh, no mic.
Hello, Rio. I've just seen you. Just joined.
Can I ask why you guys have the image? Because of you guys, I log into your own account and then your portfolio got your own picture, isn't it? Like, am I correct?
Yes.
So you have to done them in the very beginning.
If you log in with your Google account, you should use your Google account image.
Oh, then how come I have a Google account image?
You need to setting in a profile.
Oh my God, it's gone.
Take time.
Hello. Hi, everyone. When you have just joined in, please say hi to everyone. You can configure your microphone by clicking the gear button, I think. Make sure you can join the discussions.
Leo, how come that you are doing advertising for the TDC? Can you move your camera a little bit?
It's a bad job only.
Back up.
It's amazing. After that, we're amazing. Amazing thing after that. I cover it. Don't see it.
I thought that you're in TDC, but I was like, how come you're in TDC?
No. Because this one is from the fair.
For the bird.
Yeah, from the group.
Hello.
And then this is per user.
Hi, Anthony.
Hey, Amanda, how's it going?
Hi. Are you in Auckland or in Hong Kong?
I'm in Auckland.
Wow.
I saw you guys had posted this, and I thought, well, I'm interested to see how the format works to see if we might want to use it down here. So I thought, and then I think it was Adrian sort of popped in because I was saying, hey, can you tell me what it was like? And she said, oh, well, why don't you just join? I was like, oh yeah.
That's great. We have you from ProductTank Auckland to join our conversations. Yeah, we haven't officially.
Why not?
Yeah, we haven't officially started yet. We just try to get more people in, and once everyone is ready, I will just click the button to switch over and live stream this to YouTube. If you are ready.
Oh, then I'm going to sip myself. let's say some nonsense now.
Yeah. So okay.
By the way, I just want to ask you guys. Everyone was in tech role. Everyone don't understand the virus, how it's like kind of happen behind the tech scene. But then everyone's saying that it's like Hangouts, like MapX, like Cisco, every level is being slow, kind of a little bit slower. Even YouTube or Facebook or this and that. Do you guys reckon? Do you guys think so or not happening?
No.
I don't see obvious slowdown anywhere yet.
Or quality wise, because they said that YouTube been kind of like a down, like kind of like a little bit down the quality of the video that you guys can stream now.
Yeah, I think that's different regions would have different performance for different products.
I just share with Amanda, one day, in my office, I have 2 computers, both are training the different steps of webinar. Sometimes both webinar in the same time, and all those things. I guess this depends on the software and all those things, not from the internet speed.
So yeah, I just want to tell you that I've officially started the live stream. So welcome everyone. This is the ProductTank Hong Kong meetup number 18. So this is a very special one. We are doing a virtual open space for everyone, and today we do have a few guests coming here, and we have some topics suggested in the original meetup event page. So we can briefly talk about how you guys actually manage virtual product teams amidst this current situation where everyone has to stay away from each other, and in this situation where social distancing is the most effective way to combat the virus. So we would like to hear from you guys. How do you actually manage your product teams with each other? What are the tips? What are the pitfalls? What are the learnings, etc.? So if we have other time left, then we can actually go on some other topics like product prioritization or product metrics that we suggested in the meetup page. So yeah, so anyone want to chime in and talk about your experience about managing virtual product teams?
By the way, as usual, do you want to do a little bit of ice breaking, and because we seem to know some of the member, but then maybe it's nice to know at least a little bit of our background first, like what you guys do.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or the funny thing that you've been working on in the last 2 months. Like for me, it's like last 2 months, but I'm not quite sure in Australia you only happens maybe in the current month. So yeah, so maybe I'm the one who suggests this. Maybe shall I start?
Yes, please.
No objection. Okay, then I will just volunteer myself. By the way, well, I'm for the ProductTank as well. But however, I'm not a product manager. Instead, I'm a customer success manager. Then I work for a kind of like a system repository. That is kind of my product. So in the last 2 months that I've been 90% working from home. Although we try to get back to work in the last couple of weeks, but then now we are getting back to home again. So the current situation is really changed the way that how we work. But then we'll share more later. Okay, so you guys, any volunteer, please?
Yeah, hello. My name is Mustafa. I'm a student right now. I'm a student at City University. I study computer science here, and it was pretty interesting because all of our classes and all of our collaborations with our teammates is happening over online. So that's why I came here as well. So yeah, that's my introduction.
Dale, you want to say something? Hello.
Hello? Can people hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Oh, it's working. Yes, I did it. Okay. Hey, I'm Daryl. I'm a product manager at the Executive Center, which you haven't heard about it. It's a sort of a premium version of what WeWork aspires to be. So this is actually my first meetup. So it's an interesting format to be introduced to this group, but pleasure to meet everyone nonetheless.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Who else?
I don't mind jumping in
Yes.
next. So, hey everyone, I'm Anthony. I'm from Auckland in New Zealand. As I mentioned earlier, I decided to sit in on this because I'm an organizer for ProductTank Auckland, and I'm kind of interested to see how this format runs. My apologies to Abby before. It was Abby who mentioned that, hey, why don't I go in and listen in for myself? And I'm happy to contribute to the conversation. So my background, I'm head of product for a company called Picture here in New Zealand. We're a relatively small New Zealand-based company, but we do a offers and loyalty platform that's used in about 60 countries around the world. We've got about 150 million users on our platform. Our big customer is McDonald's, so we're in most of the McDonald's markets, except for Hong Kong, actually. You guys use a different system for reasons. And we're also broadening our wings into the US, which is proving to be very interesting at the moment, given their current situation.
Cool. So next one should be Leo.
Right. Let me to introduce a little bit, but then I will run on and then I switch my computer. Okay. And my name is Leo. You can call me Leonardo. I work in my own company. It's a trading of electronic product. Also, that I'm just a GDG Car Hong Kong organizer. So if you're interested in some Google technology and also you can ask me for help also.
Great. Google expert.
Oh no, I'm not expert. Anyway, let me switch my computer.
Okay. So we have another organizer here, Rio. Are you ready to speak anything? Hey, Rio, are you there?
Yes, kind of on and off. Bad network at home.
Okay. So I've seen some people popping in and out. So not sure if they will rejoin again. Not working, technical issue. Okay. that's something good to know about Hangouts. So continue with the conversations just now. I heard you are actually from different background and different industries. So do you guys have to work with another team or another teammates during this time remotely? And do you have to stay at home? How do you actually manage all these difficulties?
I don't mind kicking off on that one. So as I said before, I'm head of product. So I have a team of 3 product managers and currently 1 analyst reporting to me. And we've been working from home since Tuesday so Tuesday of the week just gone. We were previously all in the office before that. So the transition to working from home has been abrupt. We kind of knew it was coming, but it sort of all happened very, very quickly on one day. So we only had very minimal time to plan. The biggest learning is that all of those conversations that product managers, we get a lot done by walking up to people, tapping them on the shoulder, rolling out heads over, having those quick conversations. Very, very, very hard to replicate that remotely. We're finding a lot of times in Slack conversations, but of course in any big-based chat, you can lose context, lose emotion. But you don't want to book a meeting all the time because our days have just been blocked out into with meetings because this person wants to talk to this person. So it's been very difficult for us. I mean, the only thing we've tried that's been moderately successful so far is booking a daily check-in routine. So every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, my team comes together, we do a quick check-in. It's sort of it's like an agile stand-up, basically, like a scrum stand-up, where we just talk about, what we were working on yesterday, what are our goals, what are we looking at trying to get through today. What we also found is that, so I thought, I booked it for 15 minutes thinking my team's super organised, we're all super onto it, we're used to running stand-ups. 15 minutes, we'll burn through it. No, it takes about half an hour. And the reason for that was not because people were talking a lot about what they're doing, but it was just that social interaction at the beginning of the day, like, the funny thing that happened last night, or, hey, did you hear about this thing? And just that thing that you, when you're outside the office, you don't get. But, it's the conversations that normally would happen in the kitchen or by the water cooler or on the walk to lunch or something like that. So we found just leaving some time for a little bit of social interaction as well as the actual formal part, which is beneficial to just keep the team humming and keep us all communicating with each other.
Wow, that's interesting. So do you guys actually manage to get your work done at the same efficiency as before, or more like you're losing some of it?
Too early to tell. I think, we're only sort of 4 days in. The most slightly hilarious anecdote I heard from someone is our developers are all saying, yes, we're super productive, because they haven't got people like me tapping them on the shoulder. So, take from that what you will. But of course, that obviously comes with the downside that there's a reason behind having those conversations. It's about, keeping everybody aligned around a vision, keeping people aligned around a direction. And I'm a little bit worried that, over time, we're going to start to see some divergence of people sort of starting to work on things that maybe don't quite contribute to the primary product vision. So it'll be just interesting to see how that plays out. In terms of actual just the normal work pace, so far I think we've kept it up. My computer's running out of battery. So far we've kept it up, but as I said, we're 4 days in, so I think it's too early to tell. I'm just going to go and plug my charger in.
You should. So what about the others? Del, you have anything to share about like you working remotely with teams as well?
To be completely honest, no. We really haven't actually worked from home at all during this whole year. Yeah. But prior to this previous year, we've had our development team based in Buenos Aires, Brazil? Is that Brazil? Buenos Aires? Anyway, somewhere in South America. So we're no stranger to kind of working with a remote team. And I guess the biggest challenge of that was just compensating for time zones. So kind of meant working a little bit later just to consolidate all the questions, everything you need so that you can catch them on their evening before they get back. So there's just a little bit more diligence in making sure all the correspondence was ready for the other team when they woke up and they were awake. Or else you don't have the luxury of tapping someone on the shoulder and having a quick discussion there. So you're kind of doing all your communication in bunches in the morning and have to plan around that.
So you actually need to work with different people in different time zones, and it's really still rely on like offline conversations.
Yeah, it's obviously much tougher. Now that we have the developers in-house, obviously we have them doing it. Right? Back then when we were working with a remote team, pretty much all the important correspondence happened between 9 and 11 in the morning. So you have to just make sure you plan your day like that. Make sure if you have people that you need to speak with or in your company, you schedule for those meetings in the afternoons. You need that precious 2 hours in the morning when they're awake and you can have much quicker correspondence.
I see. So that's so you have to like adjust to everyone's time so they can contribute accordingly, right? So okay. Wow, I heard some fire engine going on.
Yeah, I think it's me. It's me in Causeway Bay.
Okay.
On the Tian Hao area.
Okay. So are you in office or at home?
At home. I was lying.
Okay.
I don't have to manage a team, but I can share my experiences. It's like time zone is killing me. It's like working when I can work from home. This is my contract. But however, when we are compulsory to work at home, I feel kind of stressed. I need to go out and pop out and then get some fresh air like every another day. Otherwise, I think I would die. And sometimes I miss the office as well. This is how I feel personally. But then work-wise, it's crazy. We almost I think we were almost like when it's needed. Sometimes we have a meeting at 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock, midnight, 2 o'clock a.m.
Wow.
Because it's like everyone is working from home, so it's difficult. So that global team working from home idea is a rubbish thing. It's like, are we recording this? Like,
Yes, we are.
oh my god! and efficiency, wise, I would say it's like I think it's down to like 70%.
Wow.
70%. And it's so difficult to talk to the product manager team because they tend to they're in the head office. My office is in Hong Kong. Then the head office is like I cannot catch them. I don't know where they are. They could be with their baby somewhere, like in the kitchen or in the garden. So it's like, oh, I feel like this kind of working from home globally idea is kind of really difficult. For some organization, it's not adapted to the whole working from home policy. I know that some company does, like some tech company that they all work from home, so it's fine. They find a way. But then for us, it's like, oh my god, it's just like a delay and a delay.
So let me share some of my experience as well. So actually, I work for a very large enterprise in the entertainment industry, and in the last 2 months, we've been closing our business, the customer-facing business. So we have still a lot of work behind the scene. We still have a lot of projects going on, and all of us are actually encouraged to work from home. So we are very used to the way to work remotely, and we try to set up some disciplines for ourselves. I think to tackle the chaos that Abby has been experiencing, I think we can actually set some rules for our teams, like also making sure that we have our office hours still keep in shape. My office hours is from 9 to 5:30. So make sure that within this office hour you have been approachable, and try, if you have enough space at home, try to dedicate a specific space for your work instead of mixing up with your other activities, and try to close the door so other family members would not disturb you during your work. So that's quite important. And when I also echo what Anthony and Dao mentioned. Like, we also have to set up a lot more meetings, virtual meetings, to sync up with people, because in the old days when we were back in the office, we have to sit with each other. We could just turn our head and talk to the other guy on things that we want to align with. But nowadays, it's much more difficult to do that. You cannot always turn on your webcam during your office hour, and there could be a lot of disturbance at your home as well. So there will be more smaller, shorter meetings to be scheduled over the conferencing tools that we use. So our company use Blue Jeans, but some other companies may use Zoom or some other solutions. But that doesn't matter too much. It's more about how do we kick in a cadence of communications and making sure that people are in sync with the work progress, and not losing a lot of the context just because we can't do face-to-face conversations. So, anything to add on that?
I don't know about you guys, but I found just virtual, like Teams or Slack, it's actually quite helpful. I mean, it's at times has proven to be as successful as just reaching over and tapping someone on the shoulder. And I think one thing that has come from this, at least for some of the remote teams that we do work with, is they're much more attentive on those channels than they would be if they were in the office. So I think that's a positive thing, but people are actually watching their Slack or their Teams more often than they would be if they were actually present.
So you see the positive sign of doing remote teams, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. I think that's also another chance for most companies to rethink about what working hour actually means and how teams can collaborate in different ways instead of just thinking the work environment in a very conventional way.
I don't know. I do have to back up my complaint, which is like I found someone. Like, I'm not saying someone from my company. It's like people think deliberately to kind of like overlook or ignore your. I wouldn't say Slack, but I'm using something else.
Okay.
But then I wouldn't say the name of the product. But then people just deliberately like kind of ignore your instant message and email wise as well. So it's like it's really a big challenge. It's like I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I've been trying to look at the backlog and then try to find each of the product owner or this and that. I just feel like, oh my god, it's a pain. Like kind of.
It's more because of that they have not been using these tools very often? Is it a culture thing, or what do you think is the reason?
I think the culture thing is everyone tries to prefer to have Jira ticket stick on Jira. Then if you have something which is in Confluence and stick on Confluence, then if you Slack them, it doesn't count the Slack. They said that you need to create a ticket. Oh, that's kind of killing me. Then if you create a ticket, you need to comment on the ticket. So please don't Slack me and don't email me. I was like, oh my god, pain in the ass. Like,
okay. Anthony, do you have similar?
I prefer to go back to work to have my VPN and have this and that. Then, so that's why.
Okay. Anthony,
I was chuckling there because I think one of the things I've noticed is it makes, if there were existing sort of bad behaviors in the organization, not bad behaviors, but not ideal behaviors, being remote kind of makes them really visible, particularly around communication. You know, if you've got people who don't like to communicate in Slack and they are the person who you have to go and like walk up to and tap on the shoulder because they never answer their Slack messages, when you're suddenly distributed, that problem just gets infinitely worse. And so it's not the problem wasn't there in the first place.
Yeah.
It's that this whole not being able to just go, hey, what's going on? In person just becomes so much worse because that avenue of communication is just cut. We've noticed that in a few other areas as well, where it really highlights people's preferred method of communication. So my boss, for example, his preferred method of communication is text, and I can't get out of him Slack. He just doesn't watch Slack. It's just not who he is. And so you just have to be keeping it really, otherwise I would just go, I'm not going to text him, I'm just going to go grab him when he comes back to his desk. But I can't do that now. And so I have to think of alternative ways of working around things that were maybe, a little bit of a problem when I was in the office, but suddenly outside of the office, they become a lot bigger problem.
Right. So Abby, I think maybe your teams are really used to the way of communicating in a very documented way. I think Jira and Confluence are great tools for tracking things in a very official way to keep all the conversations in one place. But I think it's not about relying on the tools, but more relying on the real communications. And I think, I always remind my team members not to communicate just over those Jira or Confluence tools, but more about clarifying things. Communicating, clarifying things verbally, and having understanding of all the context required. And all these tools are just for you to document what you have the consent. Like once you have the consent, you document it, but you should not use those tools for your communications.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, and I'm curious, like how Leo work. Like, does it change the way you work as well because you have your own business? Does it affect you? How you talk to your stakeholder, outsider?
For me, because most of my communication only in China, because overseas customer mostly by email. There's no online meeting, webinar, whatever. So, but China is a change a lot also, because first time I want to sell my Zoom that the meeting or a handout meeting for them to try to establish that online meeting to discuss some that the order, the processing. But eventually, I found that China had another system. Anyway, in the world there's a two internet system. China had their own way to make the webinar or the web meeting and all those things. Actually, in the same time, China TensorFlow user group have another online meeting. They're using the WeChat to analyze their updated TensorFlow that technology. Also using the WeChat for their that platform. So that's why China has their own platform. When you know how to use it, also similar. And then I would say that sometimes I cannot go to China right now. If any problem, I can go to China immediately, because from Hong Kong to Shenzhen is quite easy to go there. Take some time, but still very quick update you can right there. But now I cannot go there, even I cannot go or come back. And then mostly use that WeChat by voice first, and then secondly by photo, and then later on will be by the live streaming that the meeting. So far that's okay for me. But I want to share another funny things to you in Hong Kong is most of the company they are changing their way to promote their product. Let's see, I can do it a lot. That's why I need to change my computer. Let's see. Okay, I found that the text. Oh, I share that the screen to all of you is my this week that the schedule. You can see that in one day I have a whole day that webinar. Even from when you step in, turn on your computer to the end, some of them will be late also. You can see that the webinar in that the technology field is quite useful. All those things, many different things. Also not included on the top. Then another Google event is a whole day event on that. That's mean in that the same the time slot, you may have 2 or 3 different webinar. You can listen and all those things. For me, I will turn on the webinar, and then I will still continue my work because I have 2 screens, and then one screen for the sharing that the things, and then another screen that I continue for my work. So this is crazy. And I can show you a little bit what I do for before. I'm not sure I can. This is my work. Anyway, in my group, we also do some testing before. Use the handout chat, use the handout meet, and then some event by the handouts, and then find that quite famous and all those things. Later on, we're still doing some testing for our group for how to use that online the platform to make that code lab. Code lab is quite different to the webinar or meeting because the people maybe they will have a problem to do the code lab in some certain that the part of the step, and then that you need to know what the screen they share to you, and then you know how to help them to continue the code lab. So we are still find a way. And that's it. Another screen I can share with you is in early, maybe, let's see, Monday. That's this is out. Yeah, that's Monday night or Tuesday morning. One I can share with you if you need more people to join your webinar or something. I think this is this slide from the GDG in Spain. They share with us is use that YouTube with the OBS. I'm not sure all of you know what is OBS or not. Then this is very useful how to some edit, and then that you can make a YouTube live on that. And then that I think it's a useful tools and then tips for you, something like that.
What is OBS, please?
OBS is a tool that most YouTuber or some gamers would use to live stream their screens with to others on YouTube, on Facebook, on all these social media. So you can mix different input channels from video, from your webcam, from your audio devices, and mix it together and output it and live stream it together.
Is this free?
Yeah, it's free of charge. You can download it and use it on your own computer.
Yes, yeah. That's why this is the tips for you, and then that I can share with you and all those things.
Yeah, thanks.
How to do it better, because actually, I test more than that, because the reason sometimes why I join so many webinars, and then firstly I want to hear more technology, the update things. But secondly, I want to see different platforms, what they use, and then that's the result and what is it. I find some that is quite that good platform, but all of them need to pay. So for us,
no free lunch.
No free lunch.
That's very good. They can set up something like that. Can have an individual room in the platform. When you go in, you can like the chit chat. Oh, some people in this room, and then they can chit chat what they want to chat, and then and then in the presentation, and then all people will stop it the chit chat and then go to the main presentation, something like that. There's many tools I still exploring, and then find a way how to make it. So that's why that this is the thing I see the change. Another I want to say is certainly because in last Saturday, I joined another the webinar is in New York. Frankly speaking, I cannot go to New York to join and oversee the event. That's event is called Open Source Hardware. Yeah, that's an event in New York, but because of the current situation, they go to live on the webinar. Then I can join more event like that. That's the culture change also, because it's no border to you go to any event, because even in Hong Kong, I can go to any event when you post online, let's say in New York, in Barcelona, or in other places. I think this is quite interesting for us also.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the maybe we'll say too many webinars. We cannot join all. It depends how many times you next to your computer to see to join or only. So that's why I would say that in this time you may use more resource on that to get more update technology, update the things, something like that. Yeah.
Yep. So I think Rio just texts us some of his comments. If mass lockdown and working remotely lasts for another 6 months to a year, looks like people need to get smarter about these technologies. Leo describing. So I think, yes, the best example here is that Anthony from Auckland has joined us today.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so something we've been talking about down here at ProductTank, because obviously, we're suddenly figuring out how to go remote as well, and it's, we have really good participation within our city, and sometimes we get people dialing in from other parts of New Zealand, but now, now we've got the opportunity to say, hey, there's a really interesting speaker happening here in New Zealand or Hong Kong or Singapore or the US, and everybody can join, and it starts to become, it's like, how do you choose where to go? Because, obviously in Auckland, all you have is Auckland-based speakers if you're attending physically. But now that the whole world is out there, how do you find good content, and how do you identify who the good speakers are? And then as a ProductTank, how do you actually, get your message listened to? How do you attract an audience? So I don't know, we haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, it's there are so many online events nowadays. I think there's more growing because of this situation. And it's important for us to really do better time management, right, for ourselves. And how do we make sure that we can stay focused? Leo, I think like you mentioned that you actually open the webinars at the background and do your own work. How can you stay focused on that?
Sometimes depends on how you multitask your things. I open speaking.
when that the job this webinar is still ongoing, I still chit-chat with the China that the suppliers, some that the update quotation also. So if you are multitask things, and then you will know that. And how to jump in and jump out, I would say that.
Well, that's
you jump in and then that you do not so important. You jump out and to jump to others and something like that. Depends on if you have a training on that. I think easy because sometimes I will say that not only on that. I will use my mobile sometimes. Okay. From other chit chat I can type here, and then for other things something like that. So if you frequently to do it, I would say that it's not so difficult.
I think it depends. I would argue that because it heavily depends on the job nature that you're doing. If your job nature is really requiring you to stay really focused, like for example programming or coding, right? Yeah, then you cannot actually do a lot of context switching between many different things. Obviously, if very procedural tasks or just ad hoc communications, obviously you can do a lot of this context switching, but otherwise I would say it's better to allocate the time to stay focused for the good of yourself and the other co-workers.
Yeah, sure. Depends on your job nature. And one more thing I want to share is because it's so many. You can see the schedule, so many events online. So that's why now the challenging for the ProductTank or some that the user group or other thing is the how to stand out from others. Because everybody here have the same that the webinar. Before we are maybe physical meeting, maybe because you need to go to that place and join the meeting. But nowadays, everybody easy to join that the event by the internet. We need to think about that for the user group or some that have the community. Need to think that what is the difference in between my one to another one. Let's say the content or the people, blah 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 blah, etc. We need to think more.
Yeah, how to differentiate yourself from others, right?
Yeah.
And what about when you cannot meet with each other for quite a while, right? Or you need to stay at home, do all this social distancing. How do you actually sense the mood of your team, and how are they actually in good mood, or are they because if there are some extrovert people, right? Usually before this situation happened, they usually go out and hang out every weekend, do a lot of social activities. But now they are forced to stay at home, so mentally they may not be as good mood as before, right? Like, how do we ensure people are actually still motivated and keep the energy up? Do you have any tips on that?
I think firstly, one of the things we've really noticed here in New Zealand is that people with children they're the real heroes of all of this. So we've had so many calls where we've had people with their kids like crawling over their backs and things like that, and unfortunately we don't have children here, so it's not a problem for me. But just trying to think about letting my team manage their time there, but because normally you come into the office and there's, the kids are at school or something like that. And so, the parents generally don't get disturbed between sort of 9 o'clock and maybe mid-afternoon New Zealand time here. But, when they're at home, the kid might be demanding attention at 11 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And so just as a manager, being conscious of that and just letting people manage their own time, and allowing for that. That's been the first thing for us. The second thing is that our exec team, and also we've got an enterprise coach who's working with us at the moment, he and the team and the exec have put a lot of effort into sort of those more social things. So on Friday we had a collective social drinks where everybody just got together on Zoom and we all had a drink in our hands and had a bit of a chat and some funny things and whatnot. And it was like 108 people on that Zoom call.
Really?
Yeah. it was a big group, but somehow it worked, and kind of lightened the mood and kept people going. So I think the key is to remember. I think the thing that you're highlighting, Amanda, which is that our teams are everyone is a social being. They're all in this weird situation of not having the people around them that they used to have, and just considering that and what does that mean and allowing for it.
Right. Yeah, I like the idea that you actually keep your social events happening even virtually, and people can still feel that atmosphere and the mood. And I think it's important for team bonding as well, right? Like if we just focusing on the work and forget other aspects in your life, then that's not a healthy thing in long run. I hope this is not a long-term situation after all, but as we know, like all these uncertainties can happen from time to time, right? Like we have a lot of lessons to learn from this pandemic of the virus this time. But in the future situations like these, I think we can do much better beforehand. Speaking of that, do you actually encounter any prioritizations of your products affected by the current situation?
Oh yeah. So if you don't mind me jumping in first there, so our product is primarily aimed at bridging the gap between sort of digital and physical worlds. So it's all about getting people using their phones, coming into physical stores, be they McDonald's or the other brands that we work with. So we are looking very closely because we do an order and pay solution in Japan, and we are looking very closely at what that means, because obviously it used to be that we could have a sort of conversation with our customers and it was all about the physical world because that's our target customer. Now they're saying, well, actually, we can't have people come to our branches anymore. How can you help? So, really the global environment has driven, just this real sudden shift in overall prioritization. I was also chatting with one of our other organisers this morning, and he's working with a New Zealand company who they've been working on sort of a virtual office product for a little while. And all of a sudden they're interested in integrating it with chat software because, I think before, I'm not quite sure what their target market was, but, I think before it was more about sort of again representing the physical world, and suddenly it's like, oh, hang on, how can we pivot this to representing a distributed world? So yeah, I think there's an awful lot of companies that are going pivot. How do we pivot into, this distributed way of working?
Right. I think that's a lot of challenges for companies who are not as agile as other companies right now at these situations. You can also tell like the agility is really important in terms of how your business can react to fulfill the customers in need with this paradigm shifting from one to the other. So Dale, do you have any other tips on that? Like is your work affected by this situation? Have you to prioritize something else to more important than the others?
I think one of the most interesting part about that is, most of our customers are struggling with coming to our office space or work from home dilemma that many of us are experiencing. So while we haven't necessarily changed our roadmap, we've pushed everything back to sort of just make, I guess, last minute additions either to our website or to our mobile app, just to ensure that we're here to help them from a business continuity standpoint. So it's more so to keep them, to assure them that, while they're dealing with this pandemic like we all are, we have certain things from a maybe virtual office perspective, from IT continuity perspective, to help them continue to be productive amidst all that's going on. So our roadmap hasn't shifted; it's just been pushed back a bit so that we can, either build a new page to the website or just add a few new things to mobile apps that facilitate this whole remote work phenomenon, if you will, that everyone's kind of having to deal with.
Right. So do you have to work with different stakeholders to communicate all these new priorities and to get some alignment from them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the idea of business continuity planning, I mean, we've had a virtual office product since the day the company started, but now it's we had to move swiftly in order to sort of put out this business continuity plan product for our customers to kind of to help them embrace this whole situation. So that came straight down from the top. So there's communicating from management, and then marketing has to put together how this wants to be positioned and how the different pages and different channels in which we'll communicate what these business continuity plans offer to our clients. It requires pretty good coordination to ensure that a product of this feature can be communicated to a partially mobile client base in an effective way.
So do you encounter any challenges along the way?
Mostly very swiftly, I think. It doesn't. The developers aren't too happy when they have to break what they're working on mid-sprint to do this, but it's one of those. It's one of those situations where it's a unique occurrence in the market, and it's communicated from the top down, and there's essentially nothing we can do about it. So it's the challenge is more so just moving swiftly and galvanizing designers, developers, and everyone along the food chain that this is something that we have to do. We have to break with it. We have to break mid-sprint.
Right. So they do understand the reasons and rationale behind, but it's just maybe still upset that it's not doing what they have originally anticipated, right?
Right, but I would say a little bit of charisma and storytelling can go a long way. So obviously they know the situation and what's transpiring, but explaining why this new product needs to be launched, how it benefits clients, what the returns on this may be, what client satisfaction will be after that, how we can improve, their well-being and their business operation and make them more successful. The more transparent you are about all these things, and the more effectively you tell the story about why you're doing this, the easier it is to get people to buy in.
Yeah, I think transparency is a key thing that you have mentioned about. I think it's vitally important for businesses nowadays to react to this situation. A lot of information flowing around, maybe even rumors flowing around about your businesses or partners. And it's important for your team members to really understand what the business is facing and the challenges ahead, so that we can all think about how do we actually respond to it in a more agile way. I think for my personal experience, I think we do also have a lot of products that need to be reprioritized just because of either the business situation, because we do not have as many revenue as we expected before, and people are not coming to enjoy the time in our places, and so we have a lot of shifting of different products in our roadmaps to accommodate all these situations. And also we have to realign with so many different parties to make sure they are also understand that we have a tight budget right now. We have different situations in the market. People have different expectations nowadays. So, Anthony, do you have anything to add from that aspect? Do you actually face similar situations as well?
Well, I was actually just sorry. I was actually just distracted by the comment from Roy Munn. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. in the comments here that, how we're accelerating to the digital economy, remote components, and AI replacing human tasks of the workforce is self-organizing through digital and agile teams. What does it mean for the managers? Yeah, that's kind of really interesting because, is the shift that we're seeing now permanent? Is this actually going to drive a permanent change? We'll all go back to our offices in hopefully New Zealand in 4 weeks' time, fingers crossed. But is it actually going to drive a deeper change around the world? That so some of these things we were just talking about, perhaps what we might view as temporary pivots might become longer term trends. And what is that? As product managers, how do we work that into our product strategy?
Yeah. So do you actually need to react to the business situations right now, and how do you have to align with your stakeholders about all these situations?
Yeah, so for us it's been so I sort of report to our exec level, and so our exec has been spending a lot of time over the last week looking at what does this all mean, and your comment earlier around agility was right on. Is that the companies who have the agility in this environment are going to be the ones who will do okay out of it. Big companies who just churn on their current path, they're going to fail. And so I think for us, it's thinking about how would we pivot? What are the key? Who do we need to communicate with? What are the options? Being ready to articulate to our exec. If you stop doing this and start doing that, what does that mean for this plan that's been thought out over a long period of time? So it's just mentally preparing for that pivot and being able to execute on it. And then also thinking, pivots are, as Daryl was saying earlier, pivots are painful at the best of times, but when our workforce is all distributed and sitting at home, you can't just get everybody into a room, and you can't get that energy that you would normally do as your physical energy as a product manager to inspire them to this new goal and say, well, it's so much more popular than the old goal. So how do we learn how to do that remotely? How do we learn how to work with our teams and kind of say, hey, it's changed. Product is now over here. Go. But actually bring people along that journey when they're sitting at home and their kids are calling over them and things like that. So we've got a bit to learn. I don't know. I have an answer, but to me, it's as a product manager and as a people manager, just starting to mentally prepare myself for those conversations. So thinking about what's coming up. How do I create pivots? How do I maintain energy?
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for a lot of us as well, right? Like, especially when product people really used to work with each other in a really close teamwork way. If we are on Agile and we actually co-locate together most of our time before this, so how do we actually maintain that intimacy with each other, even though we are social distancing? so that's the hard bit, and also how do we prevent all these like digital interactions be really intrusive to our personal lives as well? I think that's also another topic. Some people would be really feel offense when they feel that, why are you actually pinging me in the middle of the night or things like that, right? So people actually have to find the right balance of how they can segregate work from their personal life, or if you do not have a problem with that, how do you actually better integrate work into your personal life? So I think there are two different views on that. So anyone has some tips on like how to make sure that you have a right balance between the two? Abby, you have been put silence for a while. So you mentioned you had some troubles on that, right? Abby, are you there?
Okay, maybe I share other things first.
Yep.
Yeah. Just Amanda mentioned before how to take care of your stakeholder. I think that's something cannot be taught. The reason is that you need to feel that the people what they type on their message or what they're speaking. I can give you a very extreme example I had. I think in 10 years before already, when I get the email from my overseas customer in Germany, then that I feel that he is very, very angry of my email. Then I need to immediately to take a phone call to the Germany to explain my situation, to cool down what he's thinking. This example is say that you need to not only read the word from your message, no matter it's a messenger or email or other things. Also, you need to feel it. Why he typed the message is like that. Feeling is more important than that the message, the wording itself. So that's why that you need to take care of others. Is you need to feel in why the situation, how he typed the message and all those things. Then I think it can be helped, but it is no any textbook and all those things can teach you how to do it. You need to do it by your experience, and then maybe in that normal life you need to feeling that what the other people what they speaking, and then is that action and all those things, and then take more exercise on that, and then you will know how to implement on the in your other that way to do it. I'm sure to say no. Yeah, anyway.
So
when
what,
you learn more, and then you will know how to implement in our other communication. I would say. I want to say that.
So how do you actually learn that feeling? Like if you have just met someone new, right? Like you're not too exactly sure what's their communication style, or how does this person actually behave, or what does he or she likes a lot? Like how do you actually, what's the tip?
Can take the smell or something like that. If you want to say like that, I would say that this is also depends on that the normal behavior, because I think this is the most people is not the first day you meet in your conversation, maybe at least 1 month or longer, something like that. You will compare existing that the message, the tone and all those things, compare with the before is the same or not. Because if you keep the consistent in the same tone and other things, okay, you will feel the normal. But suddenly if they change the tone or more hard the wording that he use that, then you will see that, and then it's a difference than before. Then this is a signal. You need to take care, and then you need to find a way to solve it, something like that. So I think it is not only in customer, also sometimes you will use in the couples, the relationship also similar to that. Maybe your second half and say in same word, but in different tone, you will know that sometimes it's maybe big problem is coming, something like that. I think it is common. I think most of people will know it, but I would say that you need to use more to on different the way in your business or your group or other people chat only.
Right. So I think that is a good tip. Like when we actually communicate over the virtual means, either through instant messaging, emails, or Slack messages, or whatever, right? So
yeah,
how do we actually sense that mood and tone that people are having, and respond appropriately? So I see someone just joined, Siddhartha. Are you there? Oh, so maybe you're not too ready to speak right now. So any other people have some tips on, like, how do we actually maintain a very effective communications of mutual understanding of each other's? Are we actually improving our effectiveness or efficiency in this virtual situation than before, or are we actually degrading it? Anyone?
I think it's that sort of it's that awareness thing. I think to me it's like this stuff actually isn't easy. Trying to figure out how to derive a mood from somebody's Slack message. But I think it's to pick up on what Leo was saying. It's just being aware that it's there. Not just remembering to kind of go, oh, why did that person write that message? That sounded quite nasty. Remembering, oh, actually, hang on, it's possibly just the way they typed it. They didn't consider context, or it's just the way that they communicate in a written form. It's just been remembering to take that step back and go, actually, that maybe wasn't what they meant, and then perhaps having a sidebar conversation or one-on-one. To Leo's point, actually getting in touch with them virtually face to face, saying, "Hey, what was up? What was up with that?" And just remembering to not go, "No, why'd you say that? That's nasty." Just as I said, it's that awareness and self-awareness for yourself as well, that you have to think everything I'm typing, how is that going to be perceived on the other side, and actually putting a bit of care into it, not just, I'm in a rush, bash, message out, and potentially it could be interpreted the wrong way. So it's both, I think, a self-awareness and also situational awareness. And again, particularly for those of us who are people managers, I've already had to manage my share of people getting grumpy with other people, and it was just miscommunication. It was just miscommunication, misalignment, and so just having to be more aware than usual than we would be in a physical context that's going to happen. As I said, I don't know that there's any particular technique to it. It's just being aware.
Right. So do you think we, in order to be more aware, do we have to do, what kind of things do we have to do more? Is it more like we communicate more, or do you actually feel that it's more like intrinsic and to need to spend more effort to really thinking how others would feel? Because I think there are some situations like what Abby just mentioned, right? Like there could be over communications. I mean, literally, over communications can mean it can be a very good thing, but it can also be overwhelming, and people lose track of all these snap messages. If you stay away for 2 hours and you come back, you have a lot long to catch up. So how do we actually do this in a virtual environment? Like, how do we improve our awareness of how other people feel? Any good tips?
I'll jump in again since there's a silence. So I mean, I guess down here in New Zealand, it's always been a thing for us, because apart from our colleagues, everyone else is remote. I've always worked for businesses that we've got offices overseas, or we've got customers overseas, or suppliers overseas, and it's that awareness that this is a problem. So thinking about it's one of the techniques I think about is where am I up to in a conversation with someone through email or Slack or whatever, and not going, making a point and then not making several subsequent points until I know that point is actually being heard and acknowledged. Remembering not to blast them with information, particularly for us because of our weird time zone. It's very easy just to send out a big blast of information, but actually remembering you have to slow down and go, right, I need to get this point across, and I'll wait, and then I get a response, and then I'll get my next point across, and so on and so forth. It's the temptation with emails, right? Super crazy long email, and it just becomes counterproductive because people, they read the first line and that's it.
Yeah, I think that cadence and rhythm, right? Like how we can make sure our messages get heard, or how would other people's messages get heard by us. So I think that's a very good tip. Daryl, you have anything to share on that?
I think a lot of it is also knowing who the audience is. Certain people prefer a Slack message, certain people prefer a phone call, certain people prefer an email. On a rare occasion, someone prefer a long, very detailed email as well. So I think the better you know the people you're working with, not just the people you work with frequently, but the stakeholders you may infrequently engage. It's something cultivated over time, and I think it can prove it pay dividends beyond the sort of remote work reality that we're facing right now. But if you understand your audience and you know them at a communicative level, and thus you can communicate in a medium, in a format that's most effective to get your message across, and is empathetic to how they like to receive information, you position yourself for a much more successful time at work. But you know that's going to happen over time. You need to build that relationship. You need to build that understanding and build that empathy. But from day one, with anyone joining a company, I would advise to really focus on that. Anyone you come in contact with, you never know when there may be a stakeholder for something in the future, right? So it's a lot of it is really understanding how they prefer to communicate with. A lot of us sit at the genesis of different people, so unlike many other people in the company, they may not really have to interact with many different departments and individuals as we do.
Yeah, you mentioned empathy. I think it's a really important element. Like, how do we actually understand each other, their preferences of work and their preferences of communications? So Rio, just chime in the chat message. I think if people...
No, I made my mistake. I'm trying to do something, but anyway, it's a mistake.
No, I said Rio, not Neo.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
I think he says, I think if people love what they are doing together, they will naturally seek each other out to get things done, maybe. And will more people gravitate towards ideas and projects more than a big brand company perks or charismatic CEOs? So, wow. So, what do others think about that? Is it more people? Is it the brand or the charisma that people would admire or to do more work towards than the usual things? Like if in these situations, in this situation where people are having a lot of upset, maybe a charismatic leadership can help bring people's energy up and also group people together, but much better than the others. How does effective leadership would help in this situation?
I would say this changes over time. Like probably individuals coming right out of uni will seek different things, and people who have been in the workforce for some time and have found a career versus found a job. So it's a lot of people, what they're seeking at different points in life changes. What they're seeking at different points in their career changes as well. But speaking from personal experience, you know, I came from a marketing background, and back then marketing was a job, it wasn't a career. But now that I've been in product, and now what Rio is mentioning, those are some of the things I look for. I was working internally, but then back to the I was interviewing, because it's not so much about a brand or perks, it's much about the work you're doing. Because when you found a career versus a job, you care more about the day-to-day, you care more about that level of fulfillment. So I think as people get older and you know, having the workforce there, what they seek out of the role changes drastically.
And I mean, to add to the whole time thing, that can vary, you know, well, probably not so much day to day, but perhaps even week to week. You know, if somebody's having a tough time in their personal life, that may mean they're less engaged, and so they need a good leader, a good manager to get them re-engaged and re-energized and help them through whatever it is that's causing problems. That's meaning they're less engaged. You know, almost irrespective of how great the company is to work for, these things can still vary. There's still situational things. You know, situations like we have right now, you know, I'm sure there's been a lot of really amazing companies to work for that are suddenly a whole lot tougher to work for in the current environment. So I think good leadership plays a part. You know, having good managers who understand that really plays a part. But it's not all about that. It's a balance of all of these things.
Right. Yeah, I think. Yay! Hi, Siddhartha. You just joined in.
Yeah.
Can you say a
Hi,
few
everyone.
words?
Yeah, I can see, right?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I couldn't join earlier. Updates on my system, so yeah, I was stuck with that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think let's continue with the conversation. So, probably.
Okay. So maybe you can chime in. How much of the conversations you have heard so far, and any views on that?
I just started with the conversation now. From the question from Rio. Probably my insight again to this would be it differs from people to people as far as their orientation is concerned. So whether they would gravitate towards ideas or whether they would be oriented more towards big brands, it depends because the motivation of every person depends. So I could actually see that in my team. So on a day-to-day basis. So there are some people who are actually thrilled by the idea, thrilled by the opportunity to learn a new technology or learn a new platform, for instance. But there are some who are just mission-driven. So they are having an attitude wherein they just want to complete the work, deliver, and there are some other set of people who we need to have an extra push. So a lot of factors come into picture when we start, especially in a remote setting. So it is really important that as someone who is into product management understands the motivation of most of the teams involved, especially the core team, not the external team, of course. The core team of the developers, the engineers, the designers, and that's my take on it.
Right. So you mentioned the core team and different roles, right? Do you think this situation impact them at similar level, or do you think that like some roles will be impacted more than the others?
So as far as I can see, the core technical team that is concerned, I don't see that affected much. In fact, they enjoy it more and they are more productive because they can avoid the day-to-day clutter which happens usually at office. But there are some business teams, like say operations, things like that. Business operations, I mean. So from when you look at them, I do see that their day-to-day efficiency, the way of working, is getting affected. Be it business decisions and things like that. Yes, it is getting affected over there.
Oh, okay. So in what extent they are affected? It's like they got more frustrations, or their work is not as what everyone else expected, or how does that affect it?
It's mainly the second one. We can actually see a dip in their output. So probably it's just going to take much longer for them to embrace this new style of working, the new way of working. It's mainly to do with the output. Yes, with that comes frustration as well. But it's mostly, we see that the decline in productivity.
I see. Any tips from you, Anthony? On different roles and how they can tackle these situations?
I guess it comes to that leadership thing again. I think that knowing who the different motivators are in your organisation, who can you get to kind of stir up a bit of fun and re-inspire people? Who can you get to help? If you start to see sort of productivity moving off, who are the people that you can enlist in your organisation to get that moving again? Who are the influences outside of just the standard organisational hierarchy? So I think it's about knowing your organisation, knowing the teams around you, and as I mentioned earlier, that an interesting little factoid we picked up around our developers suddenly becoming super productive, but because they don't have any interruptions. But what does that mean? And having people, I know that I can have a chat with our head of engineering as an example to say, hey, just need to make sure we keep the vision going with the team. How can I best do that? Because I know that he can influence that area within his team. So I think at times like this, that sort of the informal network within organizations becomes even more important, because they're the ones who can help you get through the tough things that are they're difficult enough to deal with when you're face to face, but even worse when you're apart. So who do I know who I can help to inspire someone in that team over there because they're in a bit of trouble, as an example.
Right. So that means we have to leverage what we already know about the teams and about individual team members. How would the interactions between them actually influencing each other, and how can we leverage that to in this situation to leverage the key influencers to pivot the outcome to the angle that we really want to achieve for.
And I guess also echoing what Daryl was saying earlier around building relationships, not only building relationships within your own team and your own immediate group of people that you work around, but, chat to that tester over there who's quite talkative and find out what their world is like, because, you never know when that knowledge of that person is going to come in handy when that team has an issue later on. You can quiet chat with them, hey, what's really going on there? Just remembering to build those relationships. And also, just to add to something that Daryl said earlier, I had a couple of conversations at the Minded Product Singapore conference last year with some people who do have fully remote teams, and they said, well, even with the fully remote teams, they do still get together physically every now and then to build those relationships and get together. So I think it just underlines that need to build the relationships in all areas of your business. To Daryl's point, you never know who's going to become a stakeholder later.
Right. So do you feel that this in turn actually creates another opportunity for us to understand each other better through the new way of working? Like previously, we may not, in an office situation, we may not expose about ourselves more than in that environment. So do you feel that now, because we have to do more communications in different ways, people will actually understand each other better than before?
I actually turn that question back to you, Amanda. So you guys have been remote for a bit longer than we have. What's your observation?
I think depends. I think we do have a lot more fun at work in office environment. But obviously, when we do virtual meetings nowadays with our teammates, we do feel different aspects because some of the team members have families and their kids would be shouting around during the calls, and we understand each other a little bit more in that context. But obviously, the direct interactions between the colleagues themselves are not as great as before. We all rely on Slack and WhatsApp messages to communicate. Occasionally, we try to we do calls a lot, but we don't show video. I think not a lot of people are comfortable facing camera like this. But I think it depends on whether the individual is comfortable in sharing more than their work during our virtual communications. Leo, you have something to share? Yeah.
Yeah. Like a couple, but you talk more and then you understand each more. It's the same way to do it. So that's why sometimes you will love it, sometimes you will hate it. Yeah, depends. The chemistry is a difference in between one to another one. So another thing I want to say is, if you want to get the result from other people, A/B test is applied to many ways on your daily the things. Even your communication, if you ask the question, this time I use this way, next time I use another way, maybe you will get different answer. So this is not only in the website and all those things, even on your conversation to other people, this is also useful. Sometimes you will think more that the different way for the communication. I think it can be helped.
Wow. What a interesting concept. I wonder.
Autistic communication. I've never noted that. I'm going to use that, Leo. That's fantastic.
I wonder how your friends and colleagues would actually react to your A/B testing. Yeah.
But it's true, because sometimes first time you will not get the right answer, what you expected. Then you will use another way to ask the same that similar the question, and then you will see the result. Is it true or not? Something like that. And I'm not sure how to use English, but maybe if Amanda, you can translate. Yeah, something like that. Sometimes we will not use the direct question to the core itself. Maybe you will ask some side question to see that is it true the happening in the progress and other things. So maybe progress you will say, you completed. Oh yes, and then are you have some question in your progress? Maybe you will set some question to that in that some progress. Maybe some question you can ask, and then to see is it he or already finished the task or not, something like that.
So you mean you can, by making some other questions, you can actually sense what the actual situation is all about, right? Like yeah. So you can collect different evidence by prompting different questions to the others. So I think that's a really good tip. I sense that technique being used by my boss actually. quite recently, yeah. So I think he tried different attitude and ways of asking questions to try to learn how our teams are performing and what are the challenges that we're facing and how he could help. So I think that's a good one. Yeah, I think it's more also about how do we trust each other to do the work during these situations, and empower them to have some agility to arrange their own work. That's very important. Yeah. So, Leo, you have anything to add on that as well?
Maybe I will. The last things I want to add on is, okay, just before mentioned is that you will feel that the other people, what they say or what they type on the message. Okay, on reverse, when you type the message, what the feeling you want that the receiver want to get it. You need to think. Sometimes I will type saying that the meaning message 3 or 4 times in different angle, and then I will use the receiver that the position to feel that my message, what it can hit to him or her, something like that. And then maybe that also that sometimes you will find a more soft tone, so that the message it can deliver to your receiver, then it can help that the situation more smooth. This is my last I want to say that.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think that's a good tip. Speaking of your idea of A/B testing, right? Talking about product metrics. So I think I believe nowadays when product managers look at product metrics, I think we are having a tough time to analyze them, right? Like especially during these situations, maybe the sales or the performance of our products may not be comparable with the same time last year, and a lot of factors are affecting those interpretation of product metrics. So any tip of like how do we actually make sure that we understand how well our products are performing despite all the factors that are actually maybe becoming alloys to analyze our data? Any particular tips that you see so far during these situations? Del, are you here?
Abby, you can speak.
Abby, yeah, Abby, does your sales go down recently?
I get you.
Abby, so you actually affected by this business situation where your sales figures go down, and how do you deal with it, and how do you explain to your boss what's happening?
I use escalation. I've been doing bad things, right?
Why? Try to manipulating something?
No. I've been using the formal escalation system. I mean, like, and then I CC my boss. So I've been using my boss power to hunt people down.
Oh dear.
This is really, but then because of like you said, my company is more like like formal and systematic. So that's why I use the formal way as well. I kind of like I email the hierarchy and have the hierarchy come them down for me instead of me manage them.
Oh. So, Anthony, do you see any weird metrics going on with your products?
Definitely. We actually had a bit of a sort of a brainstorm amongst my team, probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, which was what could our data tell us about the current situation? How could we help our customer to understand, because we're a B2B organization, how could we help our customers to understand the world as, basically as countries shut down? It's been fascinating to watch the data McDonald's just go and crash. And so for us, it was actually just thinking, how could we use the data in our organization to inform our customers better? So I guess more generic advice for other organizations is, become best friends with your data people. As a product manager, you don't necessarily know what all the data means. Your friendly data scientist or data analyst or whatever the role is in your organization, and get them to help you understand what data is available, what it means, what interesting insights could you derive from that, and then apply them. So, as I said, for us, it was looking at the performance of our customers and then passing that on to them, because that's just a really useful thing. They're not paying us to do it. It just makes them feel better about us. Feels they feel like we've got their back because we're providing this information in these difficult times.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important to know, like how the product metrics actually tell you the insights to help you drive the decisions at this situation, right? So I think it's also important to make sure that everyone understand the definition of the product metrics. I've seen so many people misunderstand how a product metric can actually mean. For example, the amount of time that you stay on a particular page on the website. If it's shorter, does it mean good? Or it's longer, does it mean good, right? So it can mean different things. It can mean people's having issues loading the page. It can also mean that your page is efficient enough for people to understand and skip to the next step. So I think understanding product metrics is also about understanding multiple product metrics and try to triangulate and find out what's the story behind the scene. And also, if you have a metric defined, you should make that definition be consistent. That's my tip, I think, because I've seen like even the situations we are having right now, right? Like look at how different countries define their confirmed cases of the infection. It can be very different, right? Like some countries define it as like you need to have symptoms. Even you got the virus, but you do not have symptoms, you are not considered as a confirmed cases, right? So some countries would define it as long as you get diagnosed and you have the virus in your body, then you are confirmed cases. So if you compare this confirmed cases across different countries, the numbers can vary a lot, but the definition is not apple to apple, then that is not a meaningful comparison. So
sorry, I didn't follow the news quite well. Which country use the VS system?
Well, yeah, particularly like I think China has changed their definition of confirmed cases quite a bit over the time. So that's also an issue, right? If you try to compare it like the same number across the time, but you had different definitions before, then that's not a meaningful comparison, right? So I think that's important to know how you actually like tell the story behind by really understanding what the data actually means.
Good to know.
Yeah, we're building out a data analytical, finishing the build out of the data and analytics offering for our product at the moment, and yeah, defining what each of those metrics that sit on a screen means, and making sure that they're really understandable to the consumer has been a real learning for us, and actually involving our UX teams in that conversation. And that's been a challenge for them as well, because they're not used to thinking about, they know about how does somebody, think about a screen flow, button flow, but think about how to interpret a graph. And so we've had to sort of push them a bit and shift their thinking about the UX of that, about how does somebody look at that metric and it be meaningful for them. And to your example with COVID-19 around the time that metric is consistent as well. So thinking about the UX of your analytics has been a key learning for us.
Yeah, I think you brought up a very good point. Like a lot of UX teammates actually they're really used to the qualitative side of things, right? Like how do I ensure people understand the screen flows? How do we make sure that they really use it and without misunderstanding what you are intending to design? So I think that's and naturally they're not really a number person, right? So we may have to spend a lot more effort to explain to them about like how to reinterpret these product metrics and why are these product metrics are important, and how do we make sure that they are also aware their design can have different results for the business. So Dale, are you still there?
Yeah, I was going to add, I think it's cross-education is also really important as well. So something that we started doing at our company is holding these like really informal lunch and learns once a week. We started off with just the tech team, but then the hope is to expand it out to the rest of the organization over time. And it's just to get people to sort of understand how different teams look at the business. So in the exact example you said, taking someone who looks at it from a more qualitative standpoint, but exposing them to a more quantitative way of looking at a web page or looking at how someone views the overall top line revenue of the business. So it's been good for the tech team, and hopefully over time, as we roll it out to the rest of the organization, it also pays dividends as well. But I mean, cross education is a big thing because you're so heads down in one perspective and one mentality, day in and day out, that you just aren't exposed to sort of a different mode of thinking. And again, I think this all speaks back to the whole point of empathy. When you can understand how other people are viewing the work that's being done, then you have a better holistic understanding of how everyone's working together.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's important to make sure that all our team members actually understand each other's roles and also the knowledge behind it, right? Like ensure that they're not working just in silo, and with the empathy of respecting each other's work. Sometimes we see people doing things in very silo way, like developers are really focusing on coding. They don't really care about what UX designers are doing, and or may want to blame them a lot. Why are you designing so many difficult interactions that I can't implement? Or the designers may have some negative feelings about developers not understanding their thoughts and what the rationale behind the design. And sometimes product managers may not be respecting, for example, testers' time in terms of making sure the product is in good quality, or want to sacrifice some of the design elements when the time has to be compressed. So a lot of these actually rely on the empathy among us, and how do we respect and trust each other, their expertise and their professionalism of giving us the best outcome they want to give us. So right, this is an art of the balance as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
So Rio just mentioned it in the chat. Are product managers having more talent options to enhance their teams? More diverse, experienced folks, graduates, etc., externally on rowing gigs at this time? So how do you actually recruit the talents from the industry nowadays? Are we having difficulties, or are we actually having more choices across different dimension of people? Anyone?
So, that was why I sort of started organising for ProductTank, was because I was trying to hire people, basically. That's why I do this, is have access to a fantastic talent pool. And actually, of my 3 product managers, all of them have been connections throughout ProductTank one way or another. One of them was actually one of my organisers. So,
Really?
yeah. So, that being out there in the community and actually finding people have been the way that I've sort of built diversity in my team. My team, it is randomly, my team are all women, by the way, so I've got 3 product managers working for me, all women, all very diverse, 1 European, 1 Cambodian, 1 Chinese. So it wasn't actually deliberate, it was just about, that was the talent that was available in the market. But what I would hope is, by the way that our team has promoted ourselves, the way that we've become known in the industry, has attracted that diversity to us. We haven't just attracted that sort of monoethnic, monocultural sort of group around us. We've actually got real diversity by attracting diverse people.
Right. So I think community is a really good source of talents, right? Dale, you have something to say?
Yeah, I tried to question to pose to everyone here, because this is a challenge that I faced. I said earlier, I came from a marketing background, and I spent a couple years in San Francisco where the position of product manager is heralded and glamorized in many ways. So, I mean, back when I was in marketing, I never in a million years thought that I would be able to transition into a product role. And truth be told, it took quite a bit of self-study, and I eventually had to leave my job to focus on transitioning into this role in order to get the. So, in retrospect, I feel like there might be a good amount of people that they may not have a UI UX background, they might not have a business analyst background or a tech background, but are still very competent, talented individuals who are capable of performing at a high level in this role, but might not necessarily get the opportunity to even interview or transition into this. So that said, my question, I guess, to this group is: do you think there's a predisposition against people without specific background? And do you think it's a bigger hurdle for them, or is there anything that can be done to kind of expand the type of people that are looked at? Because that's a challenge that I face, and I always wonder, how that remedied, or if it's even properly remedied, or if it's even feasible or efficient to do so.
So you actually look for the qualities of the talents rather than their certificates or the qualifications, right?
That's what I would do, but I also recognize that that's not necessarily an efficient process, right? And if you want to be respectful of time and everyone's bandwidth, you have to kind of put some superficial filters in. So I'm wondering if there is an easy solution to that. If not, fair enough. But I'm quite curious because I went through my own struggles a couple of years ago, sort of breaking into the field.
Do you feel the HR process of most companies actually filter away a lot of gems?
I would personally say yes, and that's something that I feel actually quite very, very passionate about. I don't have too many startup ideas, but that would be one of them, to somehow fix this recruiting process. I do think that there are a lot of people out there who are victims of a more automated filtering process, and simply not getting the opportunity to. So whether it's a more case study based interview process or a feedback driven interview process, I'm not sure. But this is something that I actually feel quite passionate about. Would love to hear some additional thoughts about that.
We would usually have some subject matter experts. So that's again when we are hiring for roles at a lower level or a beginner level, assist us in this process. But usually it is definitely a challenge. So I think it's better that whenever you hire a particular candidate and you don't have much expertise in that area, it's always better to have someone who knows the subject well to assist you. And of course, I understand that there are situations in which you might not have the luxury of having the subject matter expert. And in such cases, it's always best you rely on external agencies, or recruitment agencies to do the job for you.
So, Siddhartha, you actually have any experience you mentioned about subject matter experts, right? Do you have any experience like, that person is a subject matter expert, but however their qualifications or their certificates or the title, work experience before were not actually reflecting that and got filtered away? How do you actually make sure that you're not missing out those great people?
So one of the things that we usually do is, of course, again, what you mentioned is very accurate. There are chances that on paper, those qualifications don't really show up. It doesn't seem that they are really up for the job or anything. So one exercise that we do is we actually give in assignments. Be it developers, be it designers, even be it product managers, we usually have the process of giving in some assignments. And of course, for each of the assignments, we also have a way to assess whether or not they have met these goals based on, for example, in case of developers. So we always have things like hackathon in which we can test their capabilities. So yeah, so we can apply a set of methodologies like this to find out that whether the person is really qualified enough, and then we just don't base ourselves just on the paper qualifications, like the certifications and things like that.
Right, that's a good tip. I think when my company do the recruitment, I think we also give assignments to the candidates, and also we give a longer briefing to our HR people to make sure that they're not filtering out candidates too aggressively. And we look for the qualities, especially when product management or product managers are actually not a subject that you would study in universities. It's not a really common role in Hong Kong right now yet. And so there could be people from different backgrounds, but yet they're still really capable in being a product manager. So I think it's also about like how the hiring managers can make sure those those criteria are not too tight at the beginning. And as what Siddhartha suggested, maybe he can give some assignments or tasks for them to do and see how they perform in the interviews. Do we answer your questions, Rio? So any more tips on that? We have 7 minutes more.
Quickly then, a trick we use or I've used in Auckland, and I don't think about sharing this too much, lest people hear about it, is the first interview I do, I tell my candidates, this is your opportunity to ask me questions about the role and about the organization and what I'm actually looking for, because I'm looking for product managers should have the ability to interview customers, and I'm actually looking for their ability to interview me, interview our organization, and show curiosity. And so somebody who comes out, they're really interested in what our business model is, how we're funded, how our product makes money, where does the revenue come from, all those kind of key things that you as a product manager, you have to manage in a product. If they're asking me those questions, I'll go, right, they've got the right sense of being a product manager, irrespective of what background they came from. If they don't ask those questions, that's the red flag. If the questioning is very simplistic, then I know, okay, this is maybe not the right person. It's an assignment of sort, but I sort of, it's kind of, I'm not requiring that they do a lot of preparation for it. I'm just asking them to, just to come armed with questions, and then I sort of watch how it flows to judge where they land. And that's proved to work really well, actually. It's filtered out some people where they sounded really good on paper, but actually they weren't all that. So.
Yeah,
it's actually really interesting. I might steal that one, Anthony.
Yeah. So the way I do it, literally, and that's a coffee, by the way. Like I usually take them for a coffee down to the nearest cafe. It's really informal. I'm looking to bring them out of their shell. And then the next interview is when we then do the more formal product skills. The actual, how do you judge ROI? Those kind of questions. But that first interview is I'm trying to go for, are you curious, basically?
Wow, I think that's a very creative way to do people interviews, right? I haven't thought of that, like bringing people out and set them in the right context to do the test. That's a good tip. So wrapping up, I think we have discussed a lot of things in the last 2 hours. We have briefly talk about like how do we actually manage virtual teams in these situations. We have talked about like how do we manage stakeholders, like understanding each other with empathy, with the different signals that we can collect from different means of communications and people. We talk about how influencing people can motivate our team members. We briefly talk about product metrics, and also lately we also talk about like how do we recruit talent people for our teams. I think that's a really fruitful and insightful discussions. I really thank every of you. So any last comments that you want to talk to everyone else watching this video? One by one.
Can we delete them?
I think that's very helpful conversations, Abby.
Yeah, but they're like, oh my god, I will be challenged.
No, it's all right. It's all right. You didn't talk much anyway.
I try to speak less nonsense.
Right. So, Anthony, anything you want to add?
I just want to say, firstly, thanks for having me, and thanks, Abby, for the prompt to join. Yes, it's great to get perspectives from other parts of the world, and hopefully I've managed to offer something useful from every corner of the universe. The other thing, I was just going to do a quick plug for the Mind the Product virtual conference next week.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, and I know most of you know that Mind the Product Singapore got cancelled. Very sad. My wife was really looking forward to going to Singapore again. She was really sad about that. But what they're doing is a virtual conference. There's a talk on every day at midday Singapore time, which I think is the same in you guys. I think it's midday Hong Kong time as well. One of the speakers in particular, Audrey Ching, is from my organising team. She's one of the organisers down here at ProductTank, and she's VP of product for a company called PushPay. She's a fabulous speaker, so listen to her. They're also doing online training as well. I think it's $150 for the course, which is way cheaper than it usually is.
Advertising for us.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's just a great initiative because they're doing all the talks for free. You can attend for nothing. And as I said, we've got one of the Kiwis, although she's Chinese, Canadian, New Zealander, which is random, is speaking. So do go along. It's as I said, lunchtime, your time, 5 o'clock their time.
Yeah, so I think just to remind everyone that we do have a website updated in mindtheproduct.com. When you come to the website, you can see this celebrating product in Asia Pac. Just click on this link and you see a list of activities that will be going on in the next few days. Just stay tuned, register an account and stay tuned, and you can actually get involved into different product talks. And as Anthony mentioned, you can actually sign up for some training sessions as well at a very affordable fees. So yeah, anything to add, Daryl?
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure meeting everyone. I look forward to the next in-person one of these guys, one face-to-face.
I have a question for everyone here. Like next time, shall we keep it and skip it for a while, or do we keep doing this virtual thing to catch up just for some people who fancy it, or shall we give it a miss?
I think we can actually still look up for some good speakers. If any one of you have some good suggestions of speakers and topics, we can still do virtual events like this. I think that could attract more people to come and have a good discussions. Otherwise, also let's see whether the situation has improved during the summertime. Otherwise, I think we should still keep the cadence of communications and community building. So Leo, you have anything to say?
Keep in mind to change. I would say that.
Yeah.
Because the world is changing. We need to change also.
Yep, adaptive to change. So Siddhartha, you have anything to say? You are on mute.
Sorry. So thank you all. Thanks. It was really an insightful meeting, and I would hope that we have such meetings on a frequent basis. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
We are quite frequent every other month, like
Sure.
in supposedly.
Sure.
Yeah. So Rio, are you still there? I see you testing all the time, but not
Technically, not available.
not showing your face or voice. But yeah, yeah. So I thank all of you for joining this meetup. Even though we do not have a lot of attendance this time, but we have heard a lot of great advices to tackle all different aspects of the product challenges that we are having today. And thank you all for showing up. And yeah, see you next time when we have either a virtual or a real meetup. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.